I love you. We love you.
Sharon Osbourne reveals the truth about Ozzy Osbourne's final show. In a moment that sent shockwaves through the music world, Sharon Osbourne has finally broken her silence about the real story behind Ozzy Osbourne's final performance, and it's not what the fans expected. The curtain may have fallen, the amps may have gone silent, but according to Sharon, the truth was never fully revealed until now. What was meant to be a triumphant farewell became something else entirely, something deeply personal, painful, and to many heartbreaking. From the outside, the scene looked celebratory. The crowd roared, lighters lit up the night like a constellation of defiance, and Ozzy stood beneath the lights, weathered and weary, but still the Prince of Darkness. Yet behind the scenes, the reality was far more sobering. The fans saw a send-off, Sharon confided in an emotional interview. But behind the curtain, it was a man in pain, refusing to let his legacy end in silence. City officials, organizers, and even close friends of the Osbourne family have now corroborated Sharon's story. What had long been portrayed as a carefully choreographed final bow was actually the result of a chaotic scramble to preserve Ozzy's pride and possibly his life. There were moments before he walked out on stage where we thought he wasn't going to make it out there, said one eyewitness, a longtime tour technician who asked to remain anonymous. The medics were on standby. Everyone backstage was holding their breath. Sharon was pacing. She didn't take her eyes off him once. As thousands in the crowd screamed and cried, not a soul knew what was truly happening just a few feet away from the stage. The production team reportedly had two separate plans in place, one for if Ozzy made it through the entire set, and another in case they had to abruptly cut the show. According to those involved, the decision to move forward was entirely Ozzy's. He told us, "I ain't going out quiet," said the technician. He meant it. Sharon's revelation has prompted an avalanche of reactions from the public. Fans across the globe have taken to social media to express their renewed admiration for the rock icon, praising not only his musical legacy, but also his sheer willpower and unbreakable spirit. "He went out like a legend," wrote one fan, "but knowing what he pushed through makes it even more legendary." Others were more conflicted, with some questioning whether the show should have gone on at all. "If he was in that much pain, why didn't someone stop it?" asked another. "Where were the people who were supposed to protect him?" In her interview, Sharon answered that question directly. "He wouldn't let us," she said. "No matter what we said, he needed that moment. Not for the cameras, not for the fans, for himself." The emotional toll of that night has stayed with the Osbourne family. While the public celebrated Ozzy's endurance and performance, those closest to him were grappling with a different reality, one filled with uncertainty, fear, and quiet heartbreak. "He didn't want anyone to feel sorry for him," Sharon added. "He wanted to go out with fire. That was always his way." Insiders now claim that the entire tour was nearly called off multiple times due to Ozzy's deteriorating health. Private rehearsals were reportedly canceled. Doctors' visits were increased. At one point, it was even discussed whether a body double could stand in for certain segments. But Ozzy refused. The final show, which many assumed was just the end of an era, was instead the culmination of a man fighting against his own body, desperate to preserve his identity one last time. He said if this was going to be the last one, Sharon recalled, he was going to do it on his terms. Since Sharon's revelation, tributes have poured in from all corners of the music industry. Artists who once shared the stage with Ozzy have spoken out, now understanding the true weight of what he carried that night. "It wasn't just a concert," said a fellow rock musician who attended the show. "It was war, and Ozzy won." The production team has now released never-before-seen behind-the-scenes footage that shows glimpses of the toll the event took. Oxygen tanks hidden behind props, chairs placed just out of view, staff whispering frantically in headsets. All of it paints a much different picture than the one the public saw. Even city officials, who were part of the planning and security operation, have come forward with statements. "We were briefed on potential medical emergencies," one representative shared. "There was an ambulance idling nearby the entire time. Not for fans, for him." Despite the emotional strain of the reveal, Sharon says she does not regret letting him go through with the performance. "It's what he wanted," she said, holding back tears. "He earned it." While speculation swirls over what comes next, potential posthumous releases, documentaries, or tribute concerts, one thing is clear. The legacy of Ozzy Osbourne will never be seen the same way again. Because thanks to Sharon's honesty, fans now know that the final bow wasn't just a show, it was a battle. a final act of defiance, a silent scream beneath the noise. And when the lights went down and the cheers faded, only a few knew the truth. Now the world does too. As more accounts begin to surface in the wake of Sharon Osbourne's revelations, a deeper, more harrowing story is unfolding, one that exposes the fragile line between legend and mortality. While the fans roared and sang along, while cameras panned over crying faces and raised fists, backstage was a very different world. Described by one road manager as pure tension, the atmosphere behind the stage felt like the moments before a storm. There were whispers going around for days that he wasn't going to make it, the manager explained. People were already preparing for cancellations. But Ozzy kept saying, "It's happening." He was stubborn like that. That stubbornness, it seems, may have saved the show, but not without cost. Medical professionals stationed backstage had reportedly conducted multiple evaluations just hours before the performance. While they advised rest and even cancellation, Ozzy's answer remained the same: no. He looked at me and said, "I was born to do this. I'll rest when it's done," a paramedic on site recounted. That kind of conviction, it was terrifying and inspiring at the same time. Organizers rushed to put contingency plans in place. The lights, camera angles, even the stage design were subtly altered to account for any medical emergencies. A secondary path was created for quick evacuation. Medical staff were posted just feet from the wings, dressed in all black to blend in. City officials were also made aware of the potential crisis. A small team of emergency responders was embedded within the crowd. According to reports, a direct line was kept open at all times between the stage manager and the nearest trauma center. But none of that would ever be needed, because despite every warning, every concern, every heartbeat that skipped in fear, Ozzy showed up, and he delivered. Eyewitnesses say the moment Ozzy stepped onto the stage was unlike anything they'd ever seen. One fan, standing near the front rail, described it as a ghost walking out of fire. He moved slowly at first, she said, but once he hit that first note, it was like something possessed him, like his body forgot how much pain it was in. The set list, which many assumed was carefully curated for the occasion, had actually been rewritten just hours before showtime. Sources close to the family now confirm that Ozzy made last-minute changes, refusing to exclude some of his most vocally demanding songs. He didn't want to cheat the fans, Sharon revealed. He told us, "They've stayed with me through everything. They deserve all of me." And they got it. As the crowd erupted, as Ozzy screamed into the mic with everything he had left, there were others who couldn't bear to watch. "It felt like watching someone say goodbye to themselves," said a family friend seated backstage. "We all knew what this really was. Not a show, a farewell." The emotional weight of the moment wasn't lost on the crew. Stagehands reportedly teared up mid-show. Members of the band took longer than usual breaks between songs, silently watching Ozzy as if to etch the memory into their minds. Security personnel even noted that more fans than usual were openly crying, not because of the music, but because of the man. "You could feel it," said one guard stationed by the barricade. "We all knew we were witnessing something we'd never see again." By the time the final song began, the energy had shifted. It was no longer a concert. It was a communal exhale, a shared heartbreak, a realization. As Sharon stood just off stage, eyes locked on the man she's walked through fire with for decades, she wasn't the manager. She wasn't the wife. She was a witness. And when it ended, when the lights dimmed and the crowd's roar turned into stunned silence, she knew something had changed forever. "He turned around, looked at me, and just nodded," Sharon said, voice cracking. "I knew what it meant. That was it." In the days since that night, a ripple has moved through the rock world. Artists have shared tributes. Fans have started petitioning for statues, renaming venues, memorializing Ozzy in ways that reflect the magnitude of what he gave. But Sharon insists none of it compares to the moment itself. "That was the tribute," she said. "That night, that man, that pain, that strength. That was Ozzy Osbourne, the real one." And now, with the truth unveiled, the memory of that final performance has taken on a new light, not just as a farewell, but as an act of rebellion against time, against pain, against silence. A final scream in the dark. Part 3, The Aftermath, how Ozzy's final show changed everything. Since the night Ozzy Osbourne last stepped off stage, a quiet storm has been building in the music world, not one of chaos or controversy, but of reverence, of grief, of collective awe. Sharon's bombshell revelation has peeled back the showbiz curtain and exposed a raw, human story behind the legend's last stand, one that continues to ripple through the hearts of fans, performers, and even political leaders. In the days that followed, tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, not just from musicians, but from communities who felt they had grown up with Ozzy, those who had once blasted Crazy Train through cracked speakers in the back of a used pickup truck, who tattooed his lyrics on their skin, who named pets and even children after him. The reaction wasn't just mourning, it was personal. Ozzy wasn't just music. He was rebellion. One lifelong fan told reporters outside a vinyl shop that had turned its windows into a shrine. He made weird feel normal. He made pain feel powerful. He was one of us. What's become clear is that this final performance didn't just close a chapter in rock history. It ignited a movement. Across cities, murals are being painted. Radio stations have gone wall-to-wall Osbourne. City officials in his hometown are now reportedly exploring plans to dedicate a public plaza or statue in his honor, after a spontaneous fan vigil drew thousands overnight. A city representative explained, "This isn't just about a musician. This is about someone who redefined what it means to fight through the dark and come out screaming." Behind the scenes, Sharon and the Osbourne family have been flooded with letters, not the usual fan mail. These are pages filled with stories from veterans, from parents, from cancer survivors, all saying the same thing, that Ozzy's final act gave them strength. "He pushed through when he had every reason not to," said one letter. "If he can do that, so can I." But even as the tributes build and the public honors his legacy, the emotional weight hasn't lifted from those who stood nearest to him that night. The band, the road crew, the family. They aren't just celebrating a show. They're recovering from what they now describe as a spiritual experience. One crew member, who had worked with Ozzy since the early tours, broke down describing it. "We all knew it could have been his last breath," he said. "Every time he bent down or stepped forward, we flinched, and still, he gave it everything." Since Sharon's revelation, rumors have begun to circulate about unreleased footage from the night. Fans are now calling for the full performance to be released in its raw form, not the polished cuts often seen on concert DVDs, but the real version, with stumbles, with moments of vulnerability, with truth. "There's a beauty in the broken," one fan posted on a forum. "We want to see the fight, the real Ozzy." Sharon has yet to comment on whether such a release will happen, but sources close to the family say discussions are underway. The Osbournes reportedly want the moment to be shared on their terms, not edited by networks, not filtered through a corporate lens. "It was his goodbye," Sharon reportedly said, "not a product." Meanwhile, the industry is reflecting. Artists across genres from hip-hop to metal have pointed to Ozzy's final show as a reminder of what real artistry means. Not filters, not gimmicks, just soul. "It wasn't just music," one singer wrote on social media. "It was legacy. It was defiance. It was a masterclass in guts." Even Ozzy's harshest critics have gone quiet, replaced by an unspoken respect for what he endured and delivered. Those who once questioned his longevity, his choices, or his controversial moments are now looking at the total picture, and it's a masterpiece, imperfect, unfiltered, unforgettable. Back in the Osbourne household, life has reportedly shifted into reflection. The adrenaline is gone, the fight is over, and what remains is the silence that follows a storm full of memories, echoes, and the slow unraveling of years lived on the edge. "He's resting now," Sharon said in a final statement. "Not because he gave up, because he gave it all." As fans continue to visit makeshift memorials and as cities plan permanent honors, one truth rings louder than any amp Ozzy ever blew. That final show wasn't just the end of a career. It was the proof of a life lived loud and a man who refused to whisper his goodbye. And now, with the truth in the open, the legend doesn't fade, it grows. Because now, we know what it really cost, and we'll never forget that he paid it in full with every note, every breath, and every scream that echoed into the night.